all the stories and focus on the conversation of the day, and that it's all about raising preterm babies. And the question is, first of all, are you a preterm? All right. Or do you know anyone who, gave birth to a preterm and is raising one? Then feel free to interact with us on our socials. That is at NTV Kenya, at Lubembe_Winnie. The hashtag to use is your world. And let's talk about preterm babies, because it's usually a lot of discussion, surrounding preterm and the chances of survival. And if they survive, what, are the chances that they will catch up, and just grow up healthy baby. Okay, so of course we'll be delving deeper into that conversation, but for now let me introduce my guests for the day. So on my immediate left, we have Mercy Wambua, who is a preterm awareness ambassador. Mercy, it's so good to see you, to meet you. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm good.
Karibu sana. And then we also have Nelius Mukami Mwaura, who's the founder, Kena Foundation. How are you doing, Mukami?
I'm good, thank you.
It's nice to meet you as well. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And we also have Dr. Joan Okemo, who's a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist at Aga Khan University Hospital. Dr. Joan, karibu sana. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you. I'm very well.
Karibu. And of course, we'll also be joined a little bit later by Dr. Petrine Omondi, who is a pediatrician as well, to just give us more insights as far as raising preterm babies is concerned. But Dr. Joan, let me just start with you very quickly. There's a lot when it comes to before the baby is born, right? There's a lot that happens, during pregnancy and all those things. But can we just basically get to understand the gestational age, right? What does that mean? Because they usually say it's different when the baby is in, the womb and when the baby is out. So just help us understand that.
So normal pregnancy takes about 40 weeks. And this is usually calculated from the last time of a woman's menstrual period, because that's the most definite thing that you can actually pinpoint to. Okay. So from the first day of the last menses up to the estimated due date takes about 40 weeks. Many people say it's 9 months, but generally it's not. So any time from 37 weeks to 40 weeks is considered term. And preterm will be anything before that. All right. Yes. Before 37 weeks.
Okay. Yes. But there are different levels to preterm, right?
Yes.
All right.
So for preterm, first of all, generally babies are viable from around 28 weeks if they're born to the outside world. But there are those ones, of course, who can survive even earlier, like 27, 26 weeks, which is very likely dependent on the facility and what they're capable of, and of also the general well-being of the baby, what is making them be born early, among other things. So from 28 weeks to around 32 weeks, it's called, under 28 weeks is extreme preterm. And then from 28 weeks to 32 weeks is very preterm. And then from 32 weeks to 34 weeks is moderate preterm. And from 34 weeks to 36 weeks and 6 days, just before 37, it is late preterm. So the late preterms, the closer you are to term, the higher the chances of survival, the higher the chances of doing well when you're born at that particular time. And of course, the reverse is opposite for the ones born a bit earlier. Okay.
You said at around 28 weeks, the baby can be viable.
Yes.
What exactly does that mean when you say viable?
That means that if they are born, if they're no longer in the womb and they're born to the outside world, chances of survival on their own, of course with a bit of help, is better.
Okay.
Yes, compared to someone who is born before. Because by then most organs are formed. It's just about supporting them to make sure that they function well.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me talk to Mercy. So Mercy, in 2018, you were pregnant, of course, at that time with your second born, right? But then at some point you were diagnosed with preeclampsia.
Yes.
Can we go back to 2018?
In 2018, when I got to know that I was pregnant with my second baby, I was diagnosed with preeclampsia at 24 weeks.
24 weeks.
Yes.
All right.
And the reason I got to know that I have preeclampsia was I started having headaches. I started having swollen legs. So I went to the clinic, my very usual clinic. I went to the clinic, explained to the doctor what I'm feeling. So he took my blood pressure and it was very high. I remember it was about 153 over 102, which is very high, as Doc can confirm. Yeah. So he also took a urine test, a urinalysis, I think, to confirm if I have protein in my urine. So at that point, I'm being told I have preeclampsia, and I had also experienced it with my first child in 2015, but much later.
Into the pregnancy?
Yes,
okay.
At 38 weeks when I was going to delivery. So I was at 24 weeks, and the doctor is telling me I have to be admitted to the hospital. At that point, I didn't understand what's going on. I stayed in Fatima Maternity Hospital in Rongai for about 2 weeks. Then I was discharged because my pressures had stabilized.
Okay.
Yeah. But after that, I didn't stay home for even 2 days. I was back in hospital. That's when I was referred to Kenyatta, the Kenyatta National Hospital. And I was put under conservative management.
All right.
Yeah, to prevent eclampsia.
Yes.
So I stayed in Kenyatta for about a month. Before now, I was told they can no longer hold the pregnancy. Because at that point, I had developed complications. I was already convulsing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was about 27, 28 weeks. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Before we focus more on you know, the complications that you developed, that again you had to deliver the baby at that time. Dr. Joan, very quickly before I come back to Mukami, so what Mercy is talking about, and if someone just listening would be like, but so the symptoms that she mentioned are somewhat common in pregnancy, right? And it's very easy to ignore such things, and sometimes before you seek help, it's almost always too late. So what are some of the normal and not normal symptoms during pregnancy that we should be aware about?
Okay, so as you rightly say, some of these symptoms are very common in pregnancy. In fact, pregnancy shares symptoms with many conditions that ideally outside pregnancy they would pass for a disease.
Yeah.
For example, passing urine very frequently may point to a UTI, but in pregnancy it may be normal. Having difficulties breathing may point to a problem in the lungs, but in pregnancy it may be normal.
Yeah.
Having swollen feet may also be there. So whenever we see our mothers who are pregnant in the clinics, we always have to bring out the point of what are the danger signs of pregnancy, that if you note them, it means all might not be well. It might be, but maybe not. And
yes.
you'd rather go to the hospital to either confirm that you're well or not. And one of them, just as Mercy had, is getting a lot of swelling in your body. Okay. Generally, when you're pregnant, your feet may swell. So that we no longer consider it as a danger sign, but when you feel like, or people notice that your face is getting swollen, your hands are getting swollen, it may point to high blood pressure. Okay. The other thing is severe headaches. Headaches, again, are very common, but if the headaches that are very persistent, they're not going with the usual remedies like a simple paracetamol or a simple rest or eating and resting well, it may also point to high blood pressure, which sometimes may also come with vision problems. You can't see well, you feel like there are spots all over the place when you are looking. So that may also point to high blood pressure. Okay. Whenever you have severe pain on your belly, it's not a good sign in pregnancy. Pains in the belly are also very common, but if it's severe, it's persistent, it's also a danger sign. If your baby is not playing well, it's not a danger sign. If you have any vaginal bleeding or your water breaks, it's not a good sign. It generally means that all is not well. Or if you get severe heartburns, again, heartburns are common, but if they're very severe, they're not amenable to simple anti-acid medications, again, it may point to high blood pressure. So whenever we see our mothers in clinic, we have to give proper education that this may be normal, but if you see the extremes and this list of things, please come to the hospital. The first thing is to check your pressure and to just examine you and your baby to make sure that all is well. Or if it's not, all is not well, then what is the way forward?
Exactly. And of course, it's important for us just to understand, because I think a lot of the times people tend to ignore some of the symptoms. Yeah. And like I said earlier on, before someone goes to hospital, you know, sometimes it's almost always too late. And Mukami, you also delivered at 28 weeks, right? And you were carrying triplets at this time. Take us through your pregnancy journey just a little bit.
Thank you so much. I had a very difficult pregnancy from the word go. The moment we realized it was triplets, of course, at 8 weeks.
8 weeks, okay.
But at 4 weeks, I had experienced some bleeding, so I was on progesterone. And then now at 8 weeks, we confirmed it was a multiple pregnancy. They took more measures, of course, to ask me not to do a lot.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I was vomiting a lot. I was dehydrated. I felt it was so heavy for me. I don't know if it feels heavy for other people.
Yeah.
So I even had to control how many steps I take in a day. Like I was fully on bed rest for almost 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And then at one particular point, I woke up and my bed was wet. I didn't understand. Then probably I was like, okay, maybe I overslept and wet myself. I don't know. And then after that, that was on a Sunday. And then on Wednesday evening, I started feeling some pain. And of course you read, when you're pregnant, you read and
You
read
read
and
a lot.
read. So I posted in one of my mother groups that I'm feeling this kind of pain. And one of them said, can you time how long it's taking before the next pain?
Okay.
And so it turned out I was actually having contractions.
Oh, wow.
So I was
But how many weeks?
28.
28,
Yeah,
okay.
actually, that was like the 27th and 6th day. So the following day on Thursday was now the 28th week starting. And so at that point, I, of course, rushed to hospital. They put me on bed rest immediately. They put me in a bedpan and everything. And then they said they couldn't reverse the labor. So that was around midnight.
Yeah.
By 4 a.m., I was fully into labor. I was fully dilated.
Yeah.
But at that particular point, I couldn't also conceive, not conceive, but give birth the normal way because the babies were too small and one of them was in breech.
Okay.
So, of course, they had to do an emergency CS.
Okay. So at 28 weeks, I want to assume, you know, there's usually that denial part, like, I am not ready, it is not yet time.
Yeah.
Was this the case for you? But I think you'll answer that after the break because we need to go on a very quick break. Of course, for Mercy, again, we'll come back to you in terms of, so at this point where, again, your pressures were too high and the doctor said, listen, you cannot continue to keep this pregnancy for your sake and for the sake of the baby, right? How were you feeling at this time? You know, is it the same case of I am not ready, the baby is not yet due, and what happened after? And of course, Dr. will come back to you with more as far as then what could be some of the factors that lead to preterm birth. And what it's like, again, to raise a preterm baby. But of course, that conversation is coming up after this short break. But before we go on a break, remember this campaign that, of course, we bring you, and that is children all around Kenya rely on water from unsafe sources. So Colgate is asking you to help change this. Just a little water can make a very big difference. For every pack of Colgate that you buy exclusively at Naivas, you help us build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 Kenyans. So give a helping hand. Shop at your nearest Naivas store or online at naivas.co.ke. For more information about the campaign, go to Colgate Kenya's Facebook page or wellboring/colgate.com. Terms and conditions apply. See you after the short break. right, welcome back. Glad you're still with us. The show is Your World, and just in case you're tuning in right now, today our focus is on raising preterm babies. But of course, before we focus on the conversation, a gentle reminder about an ongoing campaign that we should all be part of. And Kenya, what if we told you that your smile can help those next to you? Well, Colgate is helping to provide clean drinking water so that our children can have a beautiful future, a bright future rather, by staying in school. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy at your nearest Naivas store over the next 2 months, well, you are helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 people. Now that is something to smile about. Well, visit the Colgate Kenya Facebook page or visit the website that is on wellboring/Colgate.com for more information. Once again, terms and conditions apply. All right. Well, let's come back to the conversation, and very quickly, I think Mukami, yes. So at 28 weeks, right?
Yeah.
That went to a hospital, of course, after your water broke, I want to assume, at this point. So when they said, listen, because I want to imagine at this time a lot is happening, right?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, are the babies okay? What is happening? Why, did your water break at this point at only 28 weeks? What were your emotions at this time?
It was a mix of emotions, because I knew they would come early. We had been told around 33 weeks.
Okay.
They would come early, 33, 34 weeks. Yeah. So at 28, we thought, first of all, we would have gotten the injection. The doctor will tell us the name.
Yes.
But there's an injection you get just to help the lungs. I think it's the surfactant. Yeah, surfactant. Steroid, yeah.
Yes.
When it's in the kids, it's surfactant. So I would have gotten the steroid now that Thursday,
right,
but I wouldn't have gotten it now when I was in labor. And then I remember next to me was a lady who was supposed to go for a CS as well. She was having problems with her kidneys, and her baby had been told the baby is not viable.
Oh, no.
And funny enough, we were in the same mom group with her. So finding her there, okay, she had told us her problem, and we knew that now she was just going to have the surgery, and the baby would not survive. Yeah. And she was having the surgery that Thursday morning. So at that point, when I was told now it has to be an emergency, the doctor came and explained that it would be better to now try and save the children at this particular point, and have them in the incubator where we will try and save them. And I remember my sister, who is a medic, and I saw her crying and hiding, and I knew there was a very big problem. Yeah. And then now I remember even the doctor talking to the lady next to me and asking her, is it okay for us to take your portion at the emergency, at the delivery room for this lady to deliver, because my babies were more viable than hers, because hers was around, I think, around 24 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I remember just her telling me it's okay, it's gonna be okay. Like, she was comforting me when she knew her baby was not even gonna make it. Strong. And mine had a chance. And so it was like an emotional thing. Yeah. So I remember my husband was very confused at that point. He didn't know, and then at this point, I don't think you have a choice. This is the only option.
To save the babies.
And then going into the emergency room, so unprepared. And then, of course, you're not given a lot of choice, because it has to be a CS first of all, and then of course they had to do the epidural because the babies were too small for me to go through GA, general anesthesia. So a lot was just happening, like in a span of 6 hours, everything just moved on quickly. Yeah. And I remember I was awake, and the doctor was showing me, here's baby number 1, baby number 2, baby number 3. But after that, I sort of went and slept. And then now waking up, everyone was so worried, there was no joy in the room. And of course I was told the babies were rushed into the Nicu. One was weighing 1.12, the other one was weighing 1.1, and the other one 1.1. So it was okay, the doctor was like, those are good weights for babies that age, but at the end of the day, when now you see your babies, you don't even imagine this is not the kind of reception you expected to give them. So it was a very I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It was, I really cried when I first saw them. So it's a moment that I would never really wish for any mother.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, I was watching another documentary yesterday night about, again, still on the same, that is preterm, and I could not finish. I could not finish because of all the emotions and you know, that was going on. So Mercy, again, for you at this time, so 27, 28, you had to also go through an emergency CS because your pressures were too high. So what exactly happened, and especially when you saw the baby for the first time, what was your immediate reaction?
I felt guilty at first.
Okay.
Because at that point you start blaming yourself, like, is it something I didn't do right? Did I eat too much? Did I forget to take my meds, you know?
Yeah.
And actually the first day I saw her, I was in denial
Yeah.
because...
What weight was your baby when she was born?
She was 800 grams.
800 grams.
Yes.
Wow.
And she was put between a baby who was weighing 1.5 and another 1.6. So I reached the Nicu and I'm asking the nurse, show me where my baby is. He takes me to the incubator and then he's like, Mama, huyu ndo mtoto wako. Like, I can't even look at her, you know. I'm in denial, I'm saying, hapana, huyu si wangu, huyu ndo ananifanana, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was so tiny, I could not even hold her. Like, you literally see how clear her skin is because she was not fully formed.
Yeah.
Yes. So the first day I really cried.
Yeah.
I was not even able to, at that point I was not even able to feed her. I was not allowed to until I think a week later is when I was allowed to feed her.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was actually very traumatizing.
Yeah.
And honestly, nothing prepares you for that.
Absolutely.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I was so unprepared to the point that I had not even bought a pair of socks. Yeah, that was how unprepared I was.
And yeah, because again, it was an emergency. You know, you when you're pregnant, you think, yeah, your baby will be fine until the due date. But then again, something just happens that you have to rush the baby to the hospital.
Yes.
I mean, you have to be rushed to the hospital and have the baby. And Dr. Joanne, at 28 weeks, is this where we more common, you know, that we have preterm birth at this week, 28 weeks?
Actually, majority are between 34 and
34 and
36.
36.
Yes.
Okay.
Most
All
of
right.
them will be around that age. 28 weeks and less are they're quite few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at what point in terms of development, like the developmental, I don't know, stage, place, phase, where are the babies at? And especially for Mercy and Mukami's case at 28 weeks.
So by the time a baby is in the third trimester, that is 28 weeks moving forward, most of the organs have formed, but their performance is not optimal. So if they are born to the outside world, then they are not independent and they'll need a lot of support. And one of the things that really lag behind is the lung. So they cannot breathe by themselves, they cannot breathe on their own. As Mukami was saying, sometimes you may need to give some injections to hasten the process before they're born to improve the chances of them breathing by themselves or of survival. And even after that, they're given some medications called surfactant to just help the lung cells to function better. So the lung is usually a problem. The brain is also in the process of developing because most of it happens in the third trimester. So babies born preterm, that's why they have problems with neurodevelopmental issues like cerebral palsy, learning difficulties, among other things. And also the digestive system is not well developed. So they have the intestines, they have the organs, but they are not functioning so well. That's why she was not able to breastfeed her baby immediately because they're not working so well. If you harakisha things, you can easily end up with complications. Their skin are very thin, they don't have the underlying fat, so they lose a lot of heat very quickly, so they have a lot of problems because of that as well. So most organs have formed, but it's just about maturation and adapting their function that is still underway.
Underway. All right.
Yeah.
And of course, Dr. Petrine joins us now via phone. And Dr. Petrine, I don't know if you can hear me. Good morning.
Hello?
Dr. Petrine, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Very well. Yes, we can. Thank you very much for joining us on the phone. So just first things first, very quickly, in terms of the preterm babies. So at this point, let's say for Mercy and Mukami's case, 28 weeks. And of course, like Dr. Joanne pointed out, around 32 to 37 weeks. This is where we usually see mostly preterm births. So what are chances of survival at this point?
Okay, so thank you for inviting me. Regarding the chances of survival, we know that, if you look at the statistics in Kenya, what we refer to as neonates are babies born, basically, we look at them at their first 28 days of life. So that's what we refer to as neonates. And we find that globally, you can even find that their deaths contribute to up to 47% of all mortality for children under the age of 5. And majority of them occur in the low income and middle income countries, for which our country falls under the middle income countries. And if you look at their survival, the younger they are, like 28 weeks and below, the higher the mortality, because it can go all the way up to 79%. And then this is also categorized in terms of their birth weight. So you see that babies who have a birth weight of less than 1,000 grams have a mortality rate of up to 79%. And the rate declines up to around 13% for babies who have weights of more than 1.5 kilograms. But again, this is also dependent on other factors such as the kind of facilities where they are, what is available, the health systems in case we will take care of these children. These are some of the things that affect the survival.
All right. And then, again, I was telling my panel here in studio that I was watching this documentary, and so the babies were born at around 31 weeks. There were triplets, actually. There were triplets born at 31 weeks. But then again, there were, what the doctor was saying is that they were behind weeks, actually, like I think around 2 weeks or 3 weeks behind, let's say, if a baby was born in the same period, that is around 31 weeks. So they were behind by 2 weeks as compared to like a singleton. What does that mean?
Okay, so if I'm getting you correctly, the baby was born at an X date, which is, they say, at 31 weeks, but they appear to be younger than 31 weeks, right?
Yes, yes. So these were triplets as compared to like a singleton who will be born at 31 weeks as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what this means, like, if you look at a singleton versus multiple pregnancies, if you look at the amount of space that is there for them to develop, and also the distribution of nutrients and everything, you find that who's a singleton has better chances because they have more room, basically they have, to put it simply, everything to themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Okay. All right. So they have sort of like everything to themselves in terms of space, but also nutritional, aspect of the same as compared to the, multiples that have to share basically everything. Okay. I hear you. All right. So what are some of the dangers, especially during this first few weeks after birth?
Okay. So because they are born prematurely, they are subjected to so many risks, many causes. And we have both the short-term and the long-term risk, and which work a lot and also relate a lot to their physiology at that point. So some of the things that they can suffer from the first few hours of life, when they're born, they tend to have low blood sugar levels.
All right, Dr.
And this in itself is because, number one, once they are removed from the uterus, you find that the blood glucose levels they are surviving from the mother drops drastically. And now it drops even further the more preterm they are and the smaller they are in terms of their weight. Yeah? Okay. So that is one thing. And having low blood sugar levels can subject them to seizures. That's one thing that can happen. And then also one of the risk factors that brings about premature birth is infection. And when these infections happen, then that means they are prone to having antibiotic therapy from the day they are born. So you find that they are constantly having multiple infections, for which we have to keep changing the antibiotics after every certain number of days. Apart from that, they are also prone to having yellowness, which is known as jaundice, because their liver is immature, so it's unable to metabolize the chemical that causes that yellowness. So it accumulates within the body instead of being excreted within the urine and the stool. So these are just some of the things that they go through, even other, because of the brain immaturity and also the lung issues. Sometimes they have this, what we call apnea, basically like forgetting to breathe.
Yes.
So those are some of the common issues, and also having this respiratory dependency on oxygen for some time, which is some of the things that they face because of that lack of the protein, which has been mentioned severally, called surfactant, which is normally deficient for these children.
All right. Please stay with us, Dr. Petrine. I'll come back to you because, yes, I saw that aspect of a baby forgets to breathe, during this documentary, and I was like, okay, how's that? But thank you for explaining that. I'll come back to you in terms of then what are some of the risks that, again, still the baby is posed or the baby might actually face, especially when they're still in the NICU. But Mercy, let's come back to you. So still in denial, but again, the baby's here, right? So then at this point, so what are you doing? Because now you're not able to feed the baby at that particular time. So what are you doing? Are you still in hospital? What is happening, to you? Did you receive some, sort of like counseling to just help you, come to terms with the fact that the baby's here?
What they do in KNH, you're given accommodation in the hospital.
All right.
So you actually get to walk the whole journey with your baby. So we used to go to the NICU every 3 hours, both day and night.
All right.
Yeah, so what the nurse would tell me is just to help turn her after every 3 hours, change her diaper, like basically to just get used to my baby, until the point where the doctor will now tell me you can now start, you can now start feeding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at this point, then what are they fed? Because now you're not able to breastfeed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're given, okay, I did so much research during that time. So they're given something called TPN. The doctor will be able to explain. Basically, it's synthetic nutrients.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they survive on until now you're able to give them your milk.
Your milk. So
yes.
At what point were you able to give her your milk?
She developed something called NEC. So I stayed for 2 weeks before I was able to give her my milk. And we started from the very minimal because I started from, I was told to go and express. They can't breastfeed at that point.
Yes.
So you're told to express your milk. Then nurse would tell me, mama enda ulambishe mtoto maziwa kwa mdomo, ajue akona mama, like so that they can even get the taste of milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I remember I started from 2 ml and getting that 2 ml was an uphill task.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you're pregnant, you will deliver and put your baby to your breast.
Yeah.
But now you're being told you have to press your breast to get that milk. So that 2 ml was even an uphill task. So we started from 2 ml and went just
gradually,
climbing to 5 ml to 10 ml as the baby's stomach also expands
even as they grow.
Yes.
You came with something to show us how small your baby was at the time, but as you get that, so Mercy, for you the babies are here, and not Mercy, Mukami. So the babies are here. You get a chance to see them. This is after waking up, and everybody in the room is just this just that mood. So take us through the progress for the babies after they were put in the NICU.
So the NICU, the first one, they are immediately born.
Yeah.
They are put in resuscitator beds, not the incubator like what we have here.
Yeah.
The resuscitator bed is for babies in critical care. I think the doctor will confirm, so that they're, in case of anything, they're able to resuscitate quickly.
Right.
Of course, they were put in what is it called? The machine. No, they were not put in the CPAP first. It was
Ventilator.
intubation,
Yes.
their ventilator, because at this point they can't even breathe on their own. So you can imagine the baby is this tiny, and he has a pipe all the way to the lungs.
That was it was very difficult to watch that.
And then the machine is there beeping, and there were so many babies. So like you were shown mine, I was shown mine 1, 2, 3. I remember they were labeled triplet A, triplet 1, triplet 2. Yeah, so that's how I knew their differences. And then I remember at the first day I didn't have milk, but the doctor was very keen on feeding them milk from the word go. So I think on the second day he was just try a little, we see. And then around 11 he asked that one of the babies needed, two of the babies actually needed transfusion. So I had to give some platelets for them to know what's blood and all that. And then now around 6 p.m. I think they called me, and there is a way they used to call you when there's trouble.
Yeah.
I remember the nurse, she was called Ayoi. She just came and was very gentle, and so she's like, can we go into the Nicu? Let's just go. And the way she was too delicate for, you know. And then when I got there were like 3 doctors around the baby girl. I had 2 boys and 1 girl. And they were trying to do all these things. And I remember at that point, the main doctor just removed his gloves, and something just told me, like, you know,
it's not
that's,
good,
it's not good. And of course now he came and explained that because of the tender age, she bled from the lungs, and they tried, and there's nothing they could do, and, you know, so they really were gentle and explained. And then, so at that particular point, of course, you cry, and they make you hold the baby just for closure, because you hadn't held her. And I remember it was, you know, it was like I didn't feel like it was real. Like I just gave birth to you the other day, and now you're gone.
And this is 2 days after they were born.
Yeah, and then you know that thing that they say that girls have a better rate of survival than boys because they're fighters. And then so I was like, wow, so it's the girl who went first. And then so at that particular point, the milk, the little drop that I had, sort of just disappeared. And so I don't know what happened the rest of the night, really. And I was at the Nairobi hospital, so they were really gentle with me. They were taking care of me. I really wouldn't complain. And then, of course, they asked me now, at the same time, you still have 2 babies
to take care
so you have to like try and give us milk, and you know. So as days went by, they have an infection, like they kept doing infections, antibiotics, blood transfusion. There was one particular baby, the first triplet, who stayed in the machine for so long. Like he would get out for like 1 day, then he would be back. He would get resuscitated, then he would be back. But the other one quickly got out of the ventilator, went into CPAP, then quickly went into oxygen, and now he started like just using the nasal prongs and the oxygen alone. And then this other one just kept on back and forth,
on and off,
you know. And then I remember at 4 weeks, they developed pneumonia, both of them.
I'm sorry.
And then now that was another problem because it affects the lungs. The lungs are still weak. So again, now we have to go back to the ventilator for both babies. After this other one had made so much progress, but now he's back. And I remember we were at the breastfeeding room, and there were babies who had been there longer than mine, and sometimes some of them would pass, and it would really dampen the mood. Some of them would go home, and it would renew our hope that, even as we were going home with
Yeah.
our babies. And then at some point, this one left the ventilator again, quickly went to the CPAP, quickly went to oxygen, and at that point I was allowed to kangaroo, to the kangaroo mother care.
Yes.
And I would do it next to the incubator for him to just have the touch, and also it helped with my milk. But the other one still had issues.
not, yeah.
And so at some point now we had to figure out what was the problem. So one day when he was strong enough, at around 3 months, he was taken to a CT scan, and they realized he had a problem in his brain that was affecting, like his brain had sort of dropped. There's a place where the brain is supposed to lock, but it had sort of dropped to the nostril, so it was blocking the nostril. So he needed surgery to help it unblock.
Yeah.
But his lungs were too weak to support the anesthesia.
process,
So
yeah.
at that particular point, I had very nice doctors. They had a conference, the ENT was there, the main neonatologist was there, the neurosurgeon was there, the nurses were there, and they took us very slowly and advised that we sign a do not resuscitate form. This is what you sign when, like now they just give treatment just until the last breath, because he had been resuscitated so many times. So at that point, one baby we are taking home, the other one we're signing a do not resuscitate form.
I'm sorry.
So you feel like, you know, you can't even understand the emotions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how I ended up leaving the hospital with one baby.
Yeah.
After having the three
babies.
Of course, it was emotional. It was, the funny thing about it is when the boy passed on, like at some point it was like a sigh of relief. Because like he had suffered so much.
Yes.
I couldn't even kangaroo him because he would wiggle in pain. I remember at some point he had so many pricks that the medicine was put here and it poured out here. So it was like, you know, like at least he's resting, because you also don't want to see your baby suffer.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's it.
I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry, because again, it's just sad, number one, you know, to lose your babies, you know, but at the same time also feeling okay that at least they are resting, and you're able to take one baby home. That's just heavy. I'm really, really sorry, Mukami, for that. Whew, okay. Dr. Petrine, let me talk to you as far as the risks that could happen in the NICU, because again, like Mukami explains, you know, the baby was in and out, you know, of the ventilator machine, and you can imagine how, you know, at this point you're just hoping for the best as a mom, as a family, and everyone else. But what are some of the risks? What could happen, you know, in the NICU?
Let me start by saying, Mukami, I'm very sorry for what you've gone through. And because it's not like I'm really sorry for you. Regarding the risks that can happen in school, so there are various ways to look at the patient factors, in the sense that this is a premature baby, and there are various systems put in place, and also equipment that are used to help facilitate these babies' lives. Considering we've talked about the incubator, the way in which it is set, in which it is well temperature regulated. There are those which also allow for oxygen to be used. So when the temperatures need to be stable, there needs to be adequate supply of oxygen. Of course, electricity is also very important. These are just some of the support systems that are there that you have to look at. And when these are not working, then that becomes a risk for the patient. The other thing is, if you look at the human resource that is available to be able to support these babies. Because we've seen within our country, we've had multiple strikes within the healthcare system because of inadequate funds, inadequate clinicians be able to take care of these babies, and that's one of the things that can arise. Because if you have, let's say, for example, one nurse taking care of 10 to 20 of these babies at the same time, you know, it becomes a bit difficult to monitor all of them at the same time and expect excellent outcomes for all of them. And we also have understanding, not just from the nurse's side, but from the doctor's side, then we also have the fatigue that comes with it and being overwhelmed. So that's also another risk factor that can happen.
Okay.
Just to mention but a few. And then going back to the baby, because most of their systems are immature, you find that, as Camille has explained, the baby keeps coming in and out, in and out. You have good days, you have bad days. And that's because of just how the body system, their physiology is working at that point.
Okay.
So regarding this risk, from what I've seen, it's literally one day at a time. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Petrine, please stay with us a little longer if you can, that is, because we're about to take a break. But of course, before that, Dr. Joanne, at this point, what kind of support then can moms get? Because I want to imagine at this point, you just had surgery, really. So you're still in pain, but also at the same time, you also have to be strong for your babies. At the same time, you also have to try and express some milk. But I want to believe at this point, it is not yet ready, because of course the body knows, you know, that this is not the time. So it's just too much, really, for the mom. So what kind of support can be offered to the mother this time?
So I think from the obstetrician point of view, the main support is to the mom, because once the baby is born, people tend to forget the mom. Even the mom herself forgets about herself, because her focus and her energy and everything is just on the baby to make sure the baby is okay. So the doctor needs to make sure as much as possible the mom is okay, the mom is safe, the mom is healing well, and sometimes they might still have the same problems that led to the birth of this baby early. For example, Mercy had preeclampsia, and sometimes that may persist even after the baby is already out. So you need to make sure that the mom is healthy. Sometimes the mom may also be even in ICU herself, or in the ward, or they may be discharged home, depending on how their health status is. We always offer counseling, which some people accept, some people don't, but I think it's something that everyone should really consider. As they say, no one really gets pregnant expecting that a baby will come early. And the challenges that come with that, no one really prepares you for that. When you may read about it, you may listen and hear talks about it, but when you're going through it, the experience is always different. So counseling is always a good point to start from in how to heal from the trauma and the psychology of just processing it all. And also trying to just make sure that complications don't arise, so preventing things like infections in the mom, preventing things like getting clots in the lungs and in the legs for the mom, because all those are possibilities in the immediate postpartum period. And also for breastfeeding, we don't want to suppress the milk completely, because eventually this baby will need to breastfeed. So what we encourage is you might express and stop. So you might put in the freezer, you might have a nurse who will assist you and teach you on how to express, either by hand or by using a machine. And you just store the milk in preparation for when the baby will be ready to take the milk. And also take precautions on how to prevent this in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because some of them you can do something about to prevent a recurrence in the future.
Okay. And of course, we'll be also highlighting them, you know, when we come back from the break, but also for Mercy and Mukami. Of course, the story or the journey does not stop once the baby is out of the NICU and you're allowed to go home. There's a lot that needs to happen, you know, just to make sure that the baby grows up well and, you know, sort of like catches up as compared to if, let's say, they were born term. And of course, all that is coming up after this short break. But again, an ongoing campaign that we need to remind you about. And when a child has to help their family fetch water, there's no such thing as a day off, and you can help us change that. What Colgate is asking all of you is to help support the future of our country, and that is our children. So just like clean water, every little drop makes a difference. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy at your nearest Naivas store, you are helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water to 120,000 Kenyans. Well, you can make a larger impact and help us to reach more Kenyans by donating via M-Pesa. So visit the Colgate Kenya Facebook page or wellboring/colgate.com website for more information. Once again, terms and conditions apply. See you after the short break. All right, welcome back. Last phase of the conversation. I can see your time is far much spent. So very quickly, I think, Mercy, let me start with you. So at what point were you allowed to go back home? And we were talking about this during the break where, okay, it's difficult. And you said the baby drops weight. I think Dr. John will tell us why, why this happens. Because for you, your baby was 800 grams when she was born, but she dropped to what, 650?
650.
What was that like?
It was traumatizing.
Yes.
Because at this point you don't understand. You're even talking to her. You came weighing as little as a loaf. We even nicknamed her Kalof.
Oh, shit.
You came as little as a loaf.
Yeah.
And now you want to drop to lower than that.
Yeah.
What is it exactly do you want? And because it was my first time experience with prematurity, I did not really understand. But the doctor had told me that it's expected that, especially because I was not feeding, so the baby had to drop. But she picked up so fast in terms of weight, though she still had complications with breathing because she'd be on and off oxygen. She picked up so fast because within a month, I could even see a difference.
Okay.
Yeah, and when she was off oxygen, I was allowed to kangaroo her, the skin-to-skin mother care.
Yeah.
And then when she was stable, we were able to do the full-time kangaroo. And as Doc has said, mothers tend to forget themselves. Because at that point, you have a CS wound, you have to be, okay, our Nicu was upstairs.
Oh, so you had to...
Yes, we used to do the stairs every 3 hours. You have a CS wound.
Yeah.
So when I was allowed to do the full-time kangaroo care is when I had a moment to rest because you're on your bed full-time.
Yes.
That's when you remember, oh, I had a CS wound. It's now even paining, you know?
Yeah.
Because at that point, between birth and before I went for the kangaroo care, I wasn't feeling any pain, to be honest. My mind was always focused on
the baby.
That Kalof in the Nicu, you know? I have to get milk for her. I have to not cry when I'm with her.
You need to send...
So there's a lot of emotions bottled up at that point. So it was difficult.
It was, I can imagine. I really can imagine. So then at what point were you allowed to take your baby home?
I stayed with her in hospital for 12 weeks and 3 days.
Oof.
She came in July 31st.
Yes.
We went home in October 13th.
3 months?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was about 3 months.
3 months thereabout, yeah. What was that feeling like when the doctor is like, you know what, we're clear, you can go home, and were you ever, I don't know, taken through, so when you get home, this is what you do, take care, because again, you still have to take care of the baby, right? Yeah.
Actually, it was surreal because you've been, because when you're in hospital, they don't even allow you to go out. Like, you're a boarder, full-time boarder. So you've been in hospital, you're even used to the environment of the hospital. Umejua shortcuts zote za kwenda Mbagathi, kuangalia tu magari, like Even looking at cars was a special moment. You know? So you'd been told, now, Mercy, you're going home. At first, you're overjoyed, but then you're also scared.
Yes.
Like, this is you're allowed to go home at 1.75.
Oh, she got to 1.75.
Yes,
that's
1.75.
good. Yeah.
So this is a 1.75 kg baby. I'm taking her home. What am I going to do with the 1.75 at home?
Scary.
You know?
Yeah.
But then you're advised that you should put her in a sanitized environment. People should not even see her because of the transference of germs and all. You
That's
know?
true. Yeah.
Yes. The place needs to be warm. Yeah. And also we were given a little bit of first aid because, as Doc has mentioned, there's something called apnea the babies get. Sometimes they can forget to breathe. It actually happened to me when I was at home.
What was that like?
This little girl forgets to breathe.
Yeah.
She turns purple. So you're told to rub her back, undress her, and take her outside.
Yeah.
Actually beat her legs until she's able to cry.
Yeah.
Yes, until she's, you know, when a baby cries, they take in some breath. Yeah. Going home was a bit scary because, you know, in the hospital, if anything happens to the baby, you should just shout nurse.
Yes.
And you get help.
Yes. But now you're
at home,
here.
you're alone.
Yes.
You're all the baby has. You have to be the doctor, you have to be the nurse, you have to be
the
everything.
mother.
Yes.
Yes.
I remember I used to get more sleep in hospital
Than when you went
than
home.
I did at home. Because in hospital, you know, you have expressed the milk, you've given it to the baby. Whether the baby is crying or not, your 1 hour of feeding is up. So you go back to the ward to sleep.
Yeah.
You know. But at home, you have to be
Contact,
full-time.
yes.
Full-time
you have to monitor
awake.
the baby. Yeah.
Yes, to monitor the baby. And at night, I'd even be scared to close my eyes because what if she forgets to breathe?
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
Must be
home was
difficult.
quite scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey. Well, Mukami, for you, so your babies were at 1 kg plus when they were born, dropped a little bit, but at some point, of course, you were allowed to go home, right?
Yeah.
But again, in this case, with one baby. So I mean, the progress, what was it like? And, you know, when you were told this and we're going home, how was that for you?
We went home at, when the baby was 1.8 kgs.
1.8, okay.
After 3 months as well.
Yeah.
Of course, first of all, it's very expensive to be in the Nicu because I think we left with a bill of about 11 million.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very expensive. And then, of course, now going home, first of all, you don't sleep. You keep on checking if he's breathing. Like you literally just look at him sleeping because you're afraid. And then the initial plan, when you're a new mom, I will never sleep with my baby in the bed, his cot. But you can't sleep, so you have to keep him here and keep checking if he's breathing. I think he's now 5 years old. And some days, I'll just go and check if he's breathing, you know, like just to be sure. And when he snores, I'm happy because I can see he's breathing. Yeah, so when I went home, of course, there are some developmental milestones that are preemies, because technically he was born 12 weeks before, which means that he might be 12 weeks behind. So there is what we call the birth age and the adjusted age. So now when I went home with him, he was 3 months old, but at this particular point, he's actually just been born. So you don't expect him to do what a 3-month-old will do. But now when I went home with him, he was in like a fetal position, like he was still curved in a way. So we had to get an occupational therapist to help him straighten up, which is also not cheap. And of course, because you also want to protect him, you have to do it at home. And it has to be, it was about 3 sessions a week for almost 6 weeks. And then after that, now he's straightened, it helps him like hold his head up. So he started holding his head up around 5-6 months, which a normal, not a normal baby, but a term baby, would be maybe 3-4 months. And then, of course, sitting was another task. He sat at around 9 months. And then walking is another thing. He will always be a bit late. And then, of course, colds, allergies, such things. Like every time you're taught by the doctor like what to look for. And then every time he gets like a small cold, he gets breathing issues, he gets bronchiolitis, you have to rush to hospital. Of course, you check his diet. So now my son doesn't eat junk, doesn't eat chips, doesn't take juice, you know, like he doesn't eat because you can't afford to give him such things that will affect his immunity.
Put him at risk.
So there are so many things, and even talking, he took a bit longer. And even up to today, you can still see he struggles a bit. Of course, weight is always an issue. But I know I've met other babies who have been preterms and now they are, you know, huge-bodied, which gives me hope that at some point he'll also be okay. Yeah, but I think the most important thing is that the more medicine advances, the more we see preterm babies actually surviving and thriving.
That's true.
Because before, someone would have taken it as a miscarriage, or even some people will say you were trying to abort, and you know, it's insensitive. It's
very insensitive, yes.
And at the same time, you go home, and I remember I experienced postpartum depression, and I went through the whole phase of depression because I realized like everybody is focused on the baby, no one is focused on you.
Absolutely.
And even you're not focused on yourself.
You're not focusing on you as well.
And so I think as much as we talk about preterm, how they live, remember they also need the mother's care.
At the same time.
Maternal mental health is a big thing that they should be taking care of. Because especially when you're in hospital, the counseling you get may not really work because your baby is in trouble. But after, you're now able to focus on the counseling. You're able to, of course, and you need support from your family.
Support is very important,
Of course, it always takes a village to bring up these kids. So it was an experience, but I think me and Mercy have used the experience to create foundations. I have my Kenna, she has her own foundation, and we're spreading awareness. We're giving information. Of course, we speak about kangaroo mother care. We speak about exclusive breastfeeding. I know other women, like another lady called Ruby with her Premila Foundation. Like people have used these experiences to help other women who are not able to get the kind of support we got.
And support as well. And just first of all, just coming here today, we just say thank you, really. You know, to just come in and also share your experience, because I think a lot of people are suffering in silence because, again, there's still a lot of stigma because, again, aspect of ignorance, people don't really understand what this is all about. So, Dr. Joanne, again, listening to Mercy and Mukame, it's a lot that is happening. And I want to imagine even to your own body, right, as a woman, because I don't know if at this point you healed, right? And even aside from the physical wound, there's also that aspect of it's an emotional toll, you know, to just go through all this and to get to go home. So at this point, again, what would you say moms need to know, right? As far as just taking care of themselves. And how do you do that without necessarily feeling guilty? Yeah, because Mercy says sometimes she would not sleep, you know, and all. Of course, this in one way or the other affects her, and that in turn affects the baby in the long run.
I think the most important thing is to know that preterm is not anyone's fault.
True.
Preterm birth, they happen most of the time. Actually, you may not even predict it, or you may not know it will arise. We have some risk factors that may predispose you to getting preterm birth, but sometimes, actually majority of the times, it may just happen without any background risk. So you can't really predict, and therefore it's no one's fault that this has happened. So you have to start from that point, that it's not my fault, this has happened, and I just have to deal with what is happening at this particular moment. And of course, support goes a long way, both from the medical perspective and even from the social perspective and mental health, as they say. Because stress in itself may also affect how you bring up this baby. It may affect your own health. It may affect your own immunity. And by extension, the baby is also affected because the mother's well-being, by extension, affects the baby's well-being as well. So supporting the mom and making sure the mom is well and healthy. To take care of the baby is actually another way of helping the baby. Yeah.
I'll come back to you in terms of then are there things that we can do to sort of prevent, you know, a case of preterm birth. But before that, I don't know if Dr. Petri is still with us. Dr. Petri, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Thank you for staying with us. This is usually a question of, so preterms, of course, we talked about the risks during the first few days or few weeks after birth and then the Nicu, but now here they get to go home. So in terms of chances of them picking up and are they, you know, the risk of complications maybe immediate or long term, what would you say are some of those things that can happen to the baby, especially for the complications?
Okay, so in terms of the complications, first of all, before they are discharged, the different hospitals have different criteria, different countries, different guidelines. And how Mike and Mukami have told some of us, one of the things that they use to help decide is the weight. Is this baby able to feed in terms of maybe even using cup or spoon? Are they able to suckle on the breast? Those are very important things. Are they able to breathe on their own or they need support? And now, by the time you're planning for this discharge, some criteria need to be able to have been met prior, so that the risk of coming back to hospital are at least minimized, because they have long-term complications, including increased hospitalization, simply because of being premature, and now because of this, they are more susceptible to infection due to their premature immunity system, especially even viral infections. They are prone to getting the allergic conditions such as asthma. All this increase their risk of having many hospitalizations as compared to the baby who has been born at and then we also look at the developmental complications that can arise, such as cerebral palsy. We also have sensory impairment where we have vision being affected because of what they're going through, such that they are of blood. Or there's also hearing loss that happen, and then later on they can also tend to develop behavioral or psychological disorders. So these are some of the neurodevelopmental long-term complications that can happen, and then just general chronic health issues which tend to manifest later in life, such as hypertension, obesity, because like when you look at a preterm, when we talk about them having what we call being able to catch up to growth equivalent years of their normal age, then you find that in the first 2-3 years of life, where most of the catch-up growth happens. And but despite that, you still have some symptoms when they're in their adolescence. They still look small, and in terms of also the height, they look shorter than children who are of the same age because they were born preterm. Yet you can also have the other aspects up, whereby now more prone to obesity later and on in life, which now puts you at risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, and all that comes along with it. So those are some of the complications that can arise, and also the catch-up growth, what is expected of them.
All right. But I want to believe there's some who just, again, at some point just speak up and grow, you know, grow well, right? Dr. Petrine?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm saying, but at the same time, in as much as there are complications that might arise, I want to believe there's some who grow up, you know, pick up and are healthy even later on in life, right?
Yes, oh yes, there are wonderful success stories that exist, and it's those success stories that keep us in the going, not to give up babies, because, you know, each one of them has a chance of survival if things are done rightly, and seeing them even like 3 months later, and you compare where they came from, honestly, it's such a joy that I cannot explain. I wonder if I can. I wonder what the fact, you know.
Yeah. All right. right. Thanks, Dr. Petrain. And I'll come back to you very shortly for your parting shot. But let me start with Mercy and Mukami. So, Mercy, how old is your baby right now? And how is she in terms of like the developmental milestones that she's hit? Yeah.
She's 3.5 now. She's turning 4 in July.
Yes.
Yes. So her growth has been very, like, it's been tricky taking care of her.
Yeah.
Because she got something called preterm anemia. I think Doc can explain on that. She got something called preterm anemia, and she also got malabsorption, whereby, fine, she's eating food, but she's not able to absorb
the nutrients.
the nutrients. So if you look at her right now, she's 3 years and just at 12 kgs, which is a bit low for a 3-year-old, you know. And we were told that by 2 years she's supposed to have caught up, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
So I think it's different with every baby.
Yeah.
Every baby is different.
Yeah.
So we've put her on a strict diet of more protein, so that we can at least try that weight ikue, you know, isikue mbaya sana, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the hardest part is usually when you meet somebody and they ask you, like right now she's in school, you're asked, mama mbona umepeleka mtoto shule mapema, you know, because they're saying this is a very tiny baby, she's in uniform, her uniform was the tiniest they could find, but it's still big.
Yeah.
So you always have to explain. There's some people who ask you from the point of judgment, and others ask you from a point of concern. I learned to use that as a teaching moment. Like, now listen, this is what happened, and this is what my baby is going through, and I'm trying my best by doing this and this.
Absolutely.
But for my second born, I noticed there's a very huge difference from my third born, because my third born also came actually he came earlier at 27 weeks.
Oh, 27, okay.
Yeah, but because I had taken preventive measures, he was not as badly off as his sister. Because I was put on medication right from the onset when I got to know that I was pregnant, and I always had high dosage of supplements. Like they'd insist I take more omega-3, more calcium, so that by the time, even if he comes preterm, he'll still have the much nutrients he needs to be able to survive.
Absolutely.
So you can see the difference. My second born stayed in hospital for 12 weeks, 3 days, while my third born stayed for only 5 weeks.
Okay, all right. And so initial, you know, just taking charge to make sure that
taking charge. And I think this time I was mentally prepared, but as I said, nothing actually prepares you.
You don't get prepared.
Yeah, nothing prepares you.
Okay, thanks, Mercy. Mukami, very quickly, because I can see, running out of time. Your baby is 5 now. So what would you tell, for example, mothers watching us and thinking, well, okay, all right. What would you tell them, having gone through the experience?
Yeah, so he's 5. He's still a bit tiny for his age, and like he can't really talk as eloquently as children his age. But the one thing I have learned, just from my experience of having delivered 3 babies on the same day from the same womb, and they all had different outcomes, is the same way in this life. Like, you cannot compare.
Absolutely.
So for me, every time you ask me, I call them funny questions, because sometimes they come in very insensitively, especially from people you don't know. It's always important to take that moment to teach, but also I don't feel the need to explain sometimes. I'm just like, listen, it's you know, like, you know, it's fine. Like, just, you know, because even when I go to nutritionist and his doctor, yes, he's underweight, but based on where he has come from, he is doing very good. Much better. You know, so at some point, you also, this is why we are trying to create a lot of awareness, so that we do not ask those questions. And when people are more aware, they will also be more sensitive. And of course, antenatal care is very important for anyone going through a pregnancy. But for any preemie moms out there, like, all I want to say is that it gets better.
It'll be okay. Yes.
And a day at a time.
Yes,
Yeah.
a day at a time. I like that. Dr. Joanne, very quickly, because like you said, there's some things that we can do to just prevent, you know, a case of preterm birth. What would you say very quickly as we finish?
So preterm birth may sometimes be, there are two ways. It can happen spontaneously by its own.
Yeah.
And there are things you can do to try and prevent that. And sometimes it can be deliberate decision by doctors for the sake of the mom and the baby for the better outcome, because survival in the womb ultimately makes it worse. So for both situations, you can do something about, and that really takes you back to what are the risk factors for preterm birth, because those are the things that you want to modify, the ones that can't be modified. So before the time of conception, there are things you can do. Some of the risk factors for preterm birth include things to do with medical conditions that pre-exist even before you conceive. Things like diabetes, high blood pressure, infections, which you can always try to control very well before a woman conceives. And some of these things may ultimately worsen in pregnancy, so there are measures like pharmacy that can be taken once you conceive to try and reduce the chances of things worsening as you conceive and pregnancy advances. So controlling the medical conditions, watching your weight, making sure that you are of optimum weight, because underweight puts you at a risk of getting preterm as well as obesity. So just try to optimize your weight, try to optimize your mental health, because stress again puts you at risk of getting preterm. Then once you conceive, for people who have suffered high blood pressure before, or they have things like diabetes or kidney disease, they can be put on some tablets like junior aspirin to try and reduce the recurrence of the same. And preeclampsia is one of the leading causes why we have preterm deliveries. So junior aspirin has been shown to reduce that risk significantly, and we start women in their pregnancy, early in pregnancy, to try and reduce that, and also just controlling their BP if they have a pre-existing hypertension. And then during the pregnancy, you monitor the baby as they grow, and also the cervix. The cervix is the part that opens when you're in labor. So for women who tend to have preterm labor, the cervix appears shorter from a very early stage. And for those ones, you can put a stitch to try and hold it in place, maintain the length, to just see how far you can push the pregnancy, and also give some hormonal support to the mother, so that you can prolong the pregnancy as much as possible. But ultimately, it's just being with your doctor, making sure that everything is under control, you are educated and aware of what to look out for and what to do at what stage.
I like that. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Joanne. Mark, only 30 more seconds so that Dr. Petrine can give us her parting shot as far as just understanding preterm birth and raising preterm babies. What would you say, Dr., in like literally 25 seconds now?
What I'd say is that it's a journey that takes one day at a time and requires a lot of grace, not just for the mother or the family, but also on the side of the healthcare workers. And just know that we live by hope each and every day. So for me, I think that would be my parting shot, and just take it one day at a time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Petrine. Ladies, thank you very much. I know this conversation, we could have it for more hours, but we have to say goodbye. So thank you very much, Mercy and Mukami, especially for you. Thank you very much for coming by, really to share, your story with us, as well as Dr. Joanne and Dr. Petrine as well, giving us insights on what exactly we need to know and understand as far as preterm birth and raising preterm babies are concerned. So I know that you've learned a lot. It's a very heavy conversation, but very necessary at the same time, so that we reduce cases of ignorance, really, as far as preterm birth is concerned. So my name is Winnie Lubembe. God bless. Have yourselves a lovely day ahead. But before we go, again, gentle reminder about the ongoing campaign where children all around Kenya rely on water from unsafe sources. So Colgate is asking you to help change this. And just a little water can make a very big difference. For every pack of Colgate that you buy exclusively at Naivas, you help us build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 Kenyans. So give a helping hand, shop at your nearest Naivas store or online at naivas.co.ke. For more information about the campaign, go to Colgate Kenya's Facebook page or wellboring/colgate.com. Terms and conditions apply. God bless.